YouTube, today we're going to go over the Magic Powder Zoroark team that I use for back-to-back battles. So let's get started and roll the episode. So why Magic Powder? I just remembered that this move existed a couple of weeks ago when I got reminded that Hatterene gets access to Magic Powder, and I didn't even know it was a signature move. But I've always loved Soak strategies, and I think Soak is a really cool move in general. And the fact that we have another form of Soak in Magic Powder, which could be really complemented with Hatterene because you can set up Trick Room and go for Magic Powder shenanigans, I thought would be a really cool idea for a team. So I decided, you know what? I really do want to try out this Magic Powder Hatterene stuff and see, you know, like how would it go. So that is the origin of this team. And then I added Zoroark because I felt like it could help out with the Shadow Rider Calyxes and Zacians, which are a little bit annoying for Hatterene to set up Trick Room against. And that was how the team got started. So how was the team formed? It started off with the Magic Powder Hatterene, and of course I needed a way to set up Trick Room pretty safely, and Hatterene Indeedee was a pretty good combo. So started off with the Hatterene plus the Indeedee. Next, I knew I needed a restricted Pokemon that was actually going to be able to take advantage of the Hatterene Magic Powder, and the two Pokemon I was considering was Yveltal and Giratina. Now, I thought about using Lunala, but of course it does match up with the Psychic typing, and I didn't really like having triple Psychic on the team. So that's why I leaned more towards the Yveltal and the Giratina. And I thought about Yveltal for quite a bit, but I really wanted to showcase Giratina because I thought Giratina was fantastic, especially on the last team I used. And yeah, I did want to try it out again, especially since it doesn't have to Dynamax to dish out a lot of damage, while Yveltal would probably need a pretty strong boosting item, and it's not exactly super slow where it'd really be able to take advantage of Trick Room with its awkward speed stat of like 99. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try out Giratina. The next Pokemon I decided to add was the Utter Restricted. And this is where it got really weird because with Giratina, a lot of the restricteds don't really pair well with Giratina because it's a dragon type. It has so many common pairings. And I was thinking of like, what could I add? Zacian. I didn't really like having double fairy, and I felt like Zacian just didn't really complement the team at all. I would have liked a mon that could still do really well in Trick Room. So I was like looking at all the Pokemon options. I thought about adding Yveltal, but I felt like that wasn't really necessary, and I kind of needed more coverage or general coverage instead of just relying on Magic Powder. So I looked back and I thought, you know what? I think Dialga makes a lot of sense. I also thought about using just Duraludon, but I felt, okay, Dialga makes a lot of sense. It gives me a second Trick Room option, which is pretty nice because if Hatterene can't get Trick Room up against like Calyx Shadow Rider, for instance, or some other situations where there's a lot of strong spread moves like Regieleki plus Kyogre, for instance, with Electro Water Spout that could break my Sash, I don't really like that. So I wouldn't be able to guarantee Trick Room up. So I thought, okay, Dialga is probably pretty safe as a Trick Room mon. It also was pretty consistent when I used it on the Giratina team, so I think it was like a pretty good pairing. The next Pokemon I decided to add was Landorus T afterward because it was just so good with the Giratina and Dialga from the last team. The Choice Banded Earthquake, the Intimidate, I just felt like it gave me so many good options that I decided, you know what, I think I have to go with Landorus. It was just such a solid option on the last team. I think it could really work here. For the last Pokemon, I knew I wanted something to help out against Calyx Shadow Rider and maybe some Zacian situations because I felt like those could still be pretty scary. Also, the Sun matchup wasn't exactly ideal because Landorus Variant, if I'm running Choice Band, doesn't exactly outspeed Charizard, which is a big problem. So I decided, you know what, I need something that can allow me to maybe put myself in a good position to get a Trick Room up. And there weren't really much that I could say. I thought about Incineroar, but I just felt like it didn't really make much sense. Calyx Shadow Rider was still threatening. I needed a way to potentially revenge KO Calyx Shadow Rider in the late game, possibly. And I thought, you know what, Zoroark has been on my mind because it's a faster dark type that with Choice Scarf that can outspeed the Calyx Shadow Rider, and it could threaten Zacian with a Burning Jealousy because I have used Zoroark before. And I thought, you know, maybe it does work on this team. I could also like think that they are going to expect a Trick Room from one of my other mons. If I disguise it as Hatterene or Dialga, they focus it down. I go for a small Burn Jealousy or like a low sweep situation in order to like catch them off guard, and then I really punish them, and then they're in a really awkward situation. So I added Zoroark as the last Pokemon to the team, and that was how the 6 was formed. All right, let's go over the items and movesets and the EV spreads of the team. We have Focus Sash, G-Max Hatterene up first with the Magic Bounce ability, Expanding Force, Dazzling Gleam, Trick Room, and Magic Powder. Overall, G-Max Hatterene, of course, really strong Trick Room setter at the beginning of the format, but it is pretty frail, especially with how much damage output there is with Calyx Shadow Rider and Kyogre, where the Focus Sash is very necessary in order for Hatterene to usually get Trick Room up. Magic Bounce is a fantastic ability with Hatterene, allowing it to set up Trick Room, ignoring taunts, spores. It's just fantastic. Expanding Force with the Psychic Terrain, allowing it to do massive damage. Dazzling Gleam hits the dark types as well as a G-Max Smite option, which of course is a devilish move, confusing your opponents, which is absolutely crazy. Trick Room to set up the Trick Room, of course, the main mode of the team, and Magic Powder, basically the Psychic type Soak, which is the move I really want to try. EV Spread, very simple, just max HP, max special attack with 4 defense. Really, it's just Focus Sash Hatterene, so you don't really need to invest that much bulk, and overall just to dish out quite a bit of damage, because you could go offensive with the Hatterene, and it does pretty significant amount of damage because it has a high special attack stat. Alongside the Psychic Terrain and Helping Hand from Immunity, might as well just go with max special attack, especially with that Focus Sash, so you don't really need that much bulk, and then have the remaining into defense right here instead of special defense, mainly just in case you're facing a Rillaboom and the Grassy Glide damage could, maybe the 4 defense could be the difference between being KO'd or not in that situation for priority. Next Pokemon we have is a pretty standard Psychic Seed, Psychic Surge Entity with Mystical Fire, Follow Me, Helping Hand, and Protect. Since I have the Focus Sash on Hatterene in order to guarantee the survival for Hatterene, pretty much your best option on Entity is going to be that Psychic Seed, because you need to invest near max defense basically in order to have the best chance of limiting exhaustion Behemoth Blade, which it usually does most of the time, and then Psychic Seeds help cover the weaker special defense to take on attacks like Kyogre Water Spout a bit better. Psychic Surge, of course, for the terrain. Mystical Fire, Follow Me, Helping Hand, Protect. Follow Me, Helping Hand, Protect are pretty standard moves on Entity. The only really big difference here is going to be that Mystical Fire. And I felt like, okay, I could use Mystical Fire and it could be really nice in order to set up for certain things. And I felt like Expanding Force, the chip damage wasn't really necessary, and I already had Hatterene that was doing big damage with Expanding Force if I need to go for the move in case. So I felt, okay, what else could I have? And Mystical Fire allowed me to hit like Calyx Shadow Rider and Kyogres and then lower their damage output, and it could really help for setup for either an easier Trick Room setup or a late game Trick Room setup, which is just really nice in general, slowing them down, which is pretty important. And then EV Spread here is pretty standard. We have a max HP Entity with 244 defense and 12 special defense with a relaxed nature. The reason you want the 244 instead of the 252 is I believe it doesn't change any exhaustion rules. And since it doesn't change any exhaustion rules between 244 and 252, if I'm not mistaken, I just decided I'm going to have the rest remaining to special defense because I might as well put it there if it's not changing anything for the physical defense. And then relaxed because we do have Trick Room, but also because it usually is able to underspeed Rillaboom and get the Psychic Terrain up, usually guaranteed, unless they're min-speed Rillaboom that you're facing down. Next Pokemon we have is Choice Band Landorus Fairing with the Intimidate ability with Earthquake, Stone Edge, U-Turn, and Fly. Pretty standard. Choice Band Landorus does a lot of damage and is pretty different from what you would normally see with like White Herb on Landorus as one of the more common items, or maybe Life Orb, Lumberry, or Assault Vest. However, Choice Band was used on the Giratina team. It does so much damage, and it really does threaten quite a bit. Stone Edge, Choice Band, it does a lot of damage even through Chardy Berry Zard. And of course, Choice Band Earthquake just hits for a good amount. And there's not really much things that can switch into ground type moves other than the flying type. So having that Earthquake was very welcomed here. And yeah, pretty much the only big difference is U-Turn here, where you don't really see U-Turn Landorus nearly as much. And the reason I have U-Turn on the Landorus is just because I felt like, okay, maybe there are some situations where I don't feel like I needed superpower on this team. It really didn't change much. Rock Slide, I didn't think it was necessary unless I was facing maybe Redirection plus Charizard, which I guess could be an argument. I felt like I could probably just U-turn out in a lot of cases, just get some decent chip, and then set up, for instance, like I could lead a Trick Room on plus Landorus, get U-turn in, and set up like the Giratina immediately, which is why I like to U-turn here. Fly, even though on a Choice Bandit set, there are some rare situations where you might Dynamax to Landorus, so having Fly is still like a good backup. There aren't that many moves you really need on Landorus. Mainly it's just Earthquake and Stone Edge, which are the big ones. Then U-turn and Fly are just really nice. For the EV Spread, it's a pretty simple 4 HP, 252 attack, and 252 speed Landorus with a Jolly Nature. This is the original Landorus that was on the Giratina Dialga team. I really enjoyed using this Landorus because it was able to outspeed like Kyogre, Groudon, able to do really good damage, and I didn't think I really needed bulk, so I didn't really want to change it. I just felt pretty comfortable using this Landorus with Choice Band and just dishing out pretty fast and really strong damage with the Earthquake. So overall, really just a strong Pokemon, and nothing really switches into Choice Band Earthquake well in the format other than flying types, which Stone Edge can or really threaten them. So I really do like this Landorus set. It does a good amount of work, and you don't even have to Dynamax it in most cases. Next Pokemon we have is the Giratina Origin form with the Orb for the item, Levitate for the ability, with Poltergeist, Shadow Force, Shadow Sneak, and Protect. Giratina just really surprised me when we used that one team, and it was just really shocking in how much damage it could really do. I really want to try it out with the Hatterene Magic Powder and just dish out quite a bit of damage. So it's a decent Pokemon in the format with Levitate for the ability, which is really important against the Groudons, which of course Sun has been one of the most common teams recently, and Giratina is really able to dish out a good amount of damage and switch into Groudon pretty comfortably. The Poltergeist, Shadow Force, Shadow Sneak, which triple Ghost. I knew I wanted Poltergeist. It's a really strong hitting Ghost move for the Magic Powder combination, and Shadow Force can break through Protects, which could be really important for against players that are trying to stall out the Trick Room. They might just go for multiple Protects, and something I can do is just Shadow Force on their Protect or break through to Protect potentially the following turn, which is really nice to have. Shadow Sneak. You might be wondering why I have Shadow Sneak when I have an Entity. It was on the original team. However, I thought about changing this move. I thought about running maybe like Dragon Claw and a few other things that I was really testing, but I felt okay. Against Calyrex Shadow Rider, it's a little bit tougher in order to handle, so I felt okay. Maybe I could do some Shadow Sneak, and maybe I can have something faster that can threaten the Calyrex and use it to pick up knockouts in the late game after the Trick Room and Psychic Terrain are over, because usually I would lead the Entity for the Trick Room and set up Trick Room turn 1. And if I can stall out the Psychic Terrain, Shadow Sneak could clean up weakened Pokemon, which is really nice. Protect and Preserve the Giratina, because I think it is important to have Protect. For the EV spread, I originally was using the original Giratina team's EV spread. However, I ended up changing it to have more special defense to take on Calyrex Shadow Rider a little bit better. And I noticed I was usually living physical attacks with quite a few amounts of HP remaining. So I felt, okay, I'll just move over a little bit extra into special defense to take on special attacks better, especially like Kyogre, Charizard, and a few others. So that's why I ended up moving a bit more into special defense. I mean, the EV spread can definitely be improved on. However, I felt like I was pretty comfortable with it, and it was able to do a bunch of damage, which was the main part of Giratina, and it did take attacks quite well. Next Pokemon we have is the Life Orb Dialga with the Telepathy ability with Flash Cannon, Earth Power, Roar Time, and Trick Room. Life Orb Dialga just does so much damage, can hit a lot in the format. It's pretty bulky, especially when invested, and it's a great Pokemon. The Life Orb, of course, to help dish out the KOs, especially like Max Quake on Zacian. It's pretty important to have the Life Orb, for instance. Telepathy, of course, with Landispharian allowed another Pokemon that could switch into Earthquake and be immune to it, which is just really nice in general. So Flash Cannon, Earth Power, Roar Time, and Trick Room. The moves you want on Dialga: Flash Cannon, which is really important for the Steel Spikes, Earth Power for the Max Quakes. Roar Time is just a really strong stab move, and it just does so much damage, which is always really appreciated. And then Trick Room as the last move. So I felt like, you know, if I'm running this on a Trick Room team, I can adjust it. I don't think I needed the fourth move Blizzard in a lot of situations. I felt like, okay, I could run Trick Room, and it'd be a really nice Pokemon to have as a backup for Hatterene. So I thought about 4 attacks, but I felt like I really didn't need it in the end. So I just ended up going with Trick Room Dialga because it was a really nice Pokemon to be able to set up Trick Room when Hatterene wasn't able to. For the Dialga EV spread, I wanted a bulky Dialga with max special attack to dish out as much damage as possible. I went with max special attack here on the Dialga because I want to do as much with the Roar of Time or the max Dragons, the max Steel Spikes as possible. And then the remaining, I knew I was going to go into bulk. I wanted a lot of HP. I went with 201. This allowed originally to live 4 Nightshades from like Dusclops if it does come into a rare situation like that. I think I would change the HP stat to 199 now because it would be able to take less recoil from Life Orb hits, especially if I don't Dynamax, and I felt like that was probably more valuable right now. So I would probably change the Dialga EV spread for 199 HP, and then the remaining I put into speed because I felt like, okay, I don't want to run min speed Dialga because I don't think I need min speed Dialga, and I ended up having low sweep on the Zoroark, and when I did have low sweep on the Zoroark, I knew I was changing to Dialga because I wanted to like make some follow-ups. So I was looking at numbers, and really I pretty much outsped everything I want to hit when I hit the 113, and that was in order to outspeed stuff like Urshifu, and then the rest really didn't matter for that part because it was quite a bit of investment. And I felt like, okay, maybe I could speed creep some other Dialga. So I just went with the remaining speed into 44. And that was the Dialga speed stat that I hit. Overall, Dialga was just able to survive attacks, really dish out a good amount of damage, and it's just a solid Pokemon. Final Pokemon to the team is the Choice Scarf Illusion Zoroark with Dark Pulse, Burning Jealousy, Snarl, and Low Sweep. Originally, when I had this team, I knew I needed a counter to Shadow Rider Calyrex, which could also maybe help out against Zacian because the most common Calyrex partner is going to be Zacian. So I did want something that can, you know, maybe help me put myself in a better position against those teams, because it could be a little bit tough. I also wanted something that could maybe help out against the potential Sun teams, because Charizard is a huge threat. So I was looking at the team, and I was looking at dark types mainly because I felt like I need to switch into Astral Barrage specifically. And then I ended up going with dark types, and Zoroark was something I thought was pretty interesting. I used Zoroark back when Colossal was pretty big in like the series. I believe it was like series 5, series 6 days, and I felt like always that Zoroark illusion to bait specific maxes that are like made to handle Colossal was pretty big. And I felt like, okay, maybe I could do illusion this time for Trick Room instead, or Dialga, and I could end up being pretty good, because Snarl, of course, with Zoroark Choice Scarf, you can outspeed Calyx Shadow Rider, put them into really awkward positions. Of course, I do remember it did get Burn Jealousy, and I've used Burn Jealousy Zoroark before, where if there is a Zacian out and it leads, you can Burn Jealousy and burn them immediately, which is a fantastic way to shut down the Zacian. So Dialga is being able to like handle teams a lot easier, which I thought was really cool. And then I've just felt like Zoroark was it. I felt like illusion could really pull some weight here, and it could be a really good end game cleanup mon potentially. I ended up going with Zoroark. I knew I wanted a special set because I knew I wanted Burn Jealousy, Snarl. I went with Dark Pulse. Last move I wasn't too sure. I had U-turn for a bit, but then I decided it's not helping me against the Sun mode, which is something that I was getting threatened by. I felt about Rain Dance and Low Sweep, and I ended up going with Low Sweep because I gained a follow up on the Charizard was pretty more important with Low Sweep into Stone Edge more than Rain Dance, which plays passive, and that usually means I still have to max my Landers, which might not even KO the Charizard. I'm gonna go with Low Sweep and see like if I can get some interesting positions with it. And yeah, I was able to, surprisingly, when I used Zoroark, which was really good in testing actually. Then the Eve spread here, I pretty much need a fast Zoroark for speed. I knew I was going with Choice Scarf to outspeed Calyx Shadow Rider. I went with pretty much max special attack because Zoroark's not really a bulky Pokemon. I think I could probably get away with running less special attack though. I feel like I could run more HP to survive certain like max moves after like a Snarl, or a Burning Jealousy burn could be really nice potentially. And yeah, I think I could have probably had more bulk on the Zoroark because I didn't need max special attack. It wasn't like this thing was sweeping or just, yeah, huge amounts of damage. It was really just chipping away, slowing down my opponent's team and putting them in awkward situations with the illusion ability. I don't think max special attack is optimal. However, it was still really nice to have as a potential. I have max special attack, 4 HP, 4 defense, 4 special defense, and then 244 speed. I probably should have went with 252 speed because you do outspeed the timid Choice Scarf Ogre, so that is something to note. I think I just had the extra because I didn't think about it at the time. I just had 156 because I felt like I outsped everything I really needed to. But I think looking back, yeah, I should have max speed for just timid Scarf Ogre if that is going to be a thing. With Calyx Shadow Rider, it's not like an impossible duo, and it's definitely been something that's been used before. So yeah, I would change it to 252 speed now that I think about it, and probably less special attack and maybe a bit more into bulk. However, Zoroark was really great in testing. The illusion actually really came into play, and it was just really fun to utilize with Hatterene, which doesn't reveal its ability, or Dialga. Since I have the telepathy, I don't reveal that I am Zoroark immediately, which is really nice to have. So how to use the team. Overall, Trick Room is a really strong option with this team because these Pokemon are really bulky, but they aren't exactly the fastest. Trick Room is usually the way to go. You don't have to go for like Magic Powder into Giratina every single time. Although if you are able to set up that position, it can go really strong, especially if the opponents are not expecting it. You would mainly just try to get Trick Room up with either Dialga and Hatterene. You have multiple ways to usually try to secure the Trick Room because Dialga or Hatterene are usually able to set Trick Room in against a majority of the format, especially with Indeedee redirection, and Indeedee's usually just able to live one hit usually in general. For the redirecting the attacks away from Hatterene or Dialga, you can also try to go with Zoroark in order for illusion stuff and then set up the Trick Room in the mid game, which is pretty important. Or if you happen to be faster, you could go with like a Dialga plus Landis Variant and really dish out a lot of damage, because Choice Banded Earthquake really does so much damage next to Life Orb Dialga that it can be a really big threat if teams are slow enough where Dialga and Landers can outspeed and really overwhelm them. So what are the common leads with this team? Indeedee plus a Trick Room on either Hatterene or Dialga is really nice because with redirection, Hatterene or Dialga is usually able to set up Trick Room against a majority of the format, which is really nice to have here. Zoroark is also a really nice lead, especially against Calyx Shadow Rider or things where Indeedee is not able to really go for redirection against. And I like Zoroark plus Landis Variant disguising yourself as one of your restricted Pokemon, or potentially the Hatterene and bluffing the Trick Room so they are forced to target down the Zoroark as you go for like a low sweep in the Charizard with a Stone Edge combination. It's really nice. You could go with like a Zoroark Giratina lead as well, and you could threaten the Calyx Shadow Riders even if they're next to Indeedee. You can go for Snarl to bypass that, or if they are just a Sash variant and they aren't going to fake out maybe a Dialga because they're going to think it's going to max, you could go for like a Shadow Sneak Snarl or Dark Pulse in order to pick up the knock on the Giratina, which is something you can really do, which is really cool about this team. I also just really like Dialga lead in general. Is able to dish out quite a bit of damage, especially with Landers. Dialga plus Landers or Landers plus Giratina is a really good option for damage output, and that's what I would say your main leads are going to be generally with this team. And that is the show. I hope you all enjoyed the team building process that went behind the Magic Powder plus the Zoroark team. It was a really fun team, and originally was just meant to test out like what does Magic Powder do and is Zoroark viable. And you know, the team actually really impressed me. I missed a lot of Poltergeists with Giratina, but that's a different story. This team actually really impressed me because I was actually doing really well with this team overall. I thought that it would be a little bit hard to come back with like an early Indeedee knockout, plus usually Hatterene Sash would be already at like 1 HP. So that was a little bit something I was concerned about, but the team performed really well. The Giratina Dialga was able to do a lot of cleanups, and Zoroark did exactly what I wanted to do with the illusion, pretty much baiting some certain options that were pretty bad if they wasted on the Zoroark immediately, and I was able to slow them down. So I absolutely did enjoy this team. If you do want to check out the episodes of the team, make sure you check it out. Try out the rent a code. Is available for 2 weeks, but there is a payment available in the description down below. Check out the videos once again in my other series 12 content where you see a lot of fun teams and a lot of cool Pokemon. But that's going to be it for me. Have a great day, people, and until we bow again, I'll catch y'all later.